What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On Deck. Good to see some of you guys already hopping in the chat. I'll get to you guys in a few minutes, but got a lot to talk about tonight. We had a lot to talk about last night too. Of course, you know what happened yesterday, so it was a busy night last night. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time to talk to you guys, so I wanted to hop back on tonight, have a little bit more of an extended version of last night. Talk about also the press conference that happened today. Not sure if you guys caught it today, but it is on the Braves YouTube. After this, you can go watch it. Alex Anthopolous, Marcell Ozuna got on to talk about that 4-year, $64 million deal that the Braves and Ozuna finally came to late in the offseason. And there were a lot of interesting quotes. They hit a lot of topics, a lot of questions that I have, that you have, and I think it's a very interesting, just a very interesting conversation, all things considered. So, with that out of the way, how's it going, Trevor? What's going on, Sean? Alpha Matt. What's going on, Matt? Calvin Coolidge, president in the house. And Jonah, thank you guys for hopping in early. I do appreciate it. Follow their league, guys. Do that if you can. Hop in the chat. Also, if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I'm so close to 1,500 subscribers, and I appreciate every last one of you. So go ahead and do that. Also, like this video. That helps me out a ton. And, of course, while you're here, go ahead and share it on your social media as well. So let's talk about the whole Ozuna thing. I had a lot of questions a week ago. One, are we going to get Ozuna, right? Two, if we get Ozuna, what is his role going to be? Because there is no DH. You can't put him at DH. Is he going to be able to be in the outfield, right? And that's a lot of money, potentially, right? Before this deal happened, I had it in my mind, this is a lot of money. He's going to want a long-term deal, and I don't know how much I'm willing to give him. I have swayed on this. I've gone back and forth on it a good bit because there's a few plays that stick out in my mind when I think of Ozuna in the outfield, because I remember watching a game with the Cardinals 2 seasons ago, and Ozuna hopped up on the outfield fence, and it became a meme pretty much because it was so comically bad of a play. But at the end of the day, the guy's a Gold Glover, So if he works hard, if he can be consistent in the outfield, I'm not gonna hold it against him. And he certainly drives in more runs than he lets go in the outfield. So that's the way I feel about it. He might not be King Griffey Jr. out there, but he'll get the job done nonetheless. So, I appreciate you guys hopping in. I'll see your comments. I'll get to them, I promise. Super chats will get you priority. This is just how it is, guys. I can't help it. But we are going to hit a couple things. So, a couple of highlights from the press conference today. These guys are asking Ozuna and Alex Anthopolous directly questions that you guys want to know. His defense, what's his role going to be? Things like that. So, and how the deal happened also. So, an interesting thing I heard in the interview, just the press conference in general, was Ozuna waited until the last minute. And I sort of, everybody kind of knows that, just considering the fact that his market's obviously there, right? People need a hitter, people, especially all across the American League. If you want him as a DH, that's the role that everybody thinks he can play. Course, everybody's going to want the guy that led the National League in homers last year. So the market was certainly there. But he loves the Braves. He feels the most comfortable with the Braves. The coaching staff just in general. So he waited until the last minute. He gave the Braves every opportunity to explore other options and circle back to them. They, of course, did that. And now you see what we have now. We have a deal for 4 years. So Alex Anthopolous was asked, what about Marcell Ozuna do you was worth bringing back, in essence. And Alex said, I was as impressed with the person as I was the performance. And I think that's a very good way to put just the overall attitude of Marcell Ozuna, because, the guy brings an energy. I said this last night. The guy brings an energy that no other player can. I believe that, because never did I ever think I would see a guy taking a selfie round at first base. So, originally I didn't want Marcell Ozuna back just because I, like a lot of you, thought he's just a DH. I'm here to tell you I really think it's time to embrace him because Alex did say that Marcell is our everyday left fielder. He has very good speed. He works hard. He basically talked him up, and he did say that he did say that is the everyday left fielder. So it was a really interesting conversation that I actually watched a few minutes back. But the other interesting thing, Marcell was actually asked directly about what about the Braves brought him back. And of course, he talked about the coaching staff, talked about the players, but he said that being in the postseason is the most important thing to me. And that is what I want to hear after last season. So I think it was very interesting to hear from Marcell and Alex together, but also just interesting to hear how the deal went. In terms of his defense, Anthopolous said that the defensive criticism is a bit unwarranted. There's a couple plays, like I just said, a couple plays that stick in your mind, and then you label that guy forever. And he also said that he thinks that Marcell can be very solid and left. But another thing that was pretty interesting, we know how the Braves operate. We know they do short-term deals, and see what they can get out of somebody. And they've done that for the past 2 or 3 years. Donaldson was the first major one, and then Marcell happened. But something that you didn't think, that I don't think a lot of people realize, is they do long-term deals too. They gave Acuna a long-term deal. They gave Ozzy a long-term deal, but they did it for a very, very exceptional price. They also did it with Will Smith. Of course, we haven't really seen the fruits of that labor yet, but hopefully that will change over the next season or two. But Anthopolous said on one-year deals, he said, it's not something we really seek to do. We handle each case individually. And he actually said, the rumor mill, just what I've been telling you guys, there's a lot of rumors out there in terms of how these trades, how the market goes down. Right now, a big one is Jose Ramirez. That's a big one you're hearing, to play third base. And I guess trade Austin Riley and a couple other people. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But, one of the rumors in terms of Ozuna was that the Braves and him are arguing or debating over how long this contract's going to be. We want 2 years. No, I want 4 years. Anthopolous came out and said that is not the case. He said 4 years was the sweet spot. It just took some time to get the deal through, and he's glad he could get it done. So that's pretty much the highlights of that press conference. I encourage you to go watch it after you get done watching me. I think that is something that if you're really into the Braves and really into how things work, and I really want to know how the inner mind of Alex Anthopolous and the Braves just organization, I would go watch that interview. So let's get into what you guys are saying. We'll talk about Jose Ramirez in a few minutes. So what's going on, Trevor? Sean, how we doing? Stellar, what's going on? Tyler? Brandon Kirkwood is glad we got Ozuna back. I am too. Originally I said that, I really think I just geared myself up for the fact that we weren't going to get Ozuna. Just based on history, I think I just geared myself up with, I'm okay if we don't get Ozuna. I'm overall happy we got him. I think he's a better fit than even Donaldson was. As much as I like Josh Donaldson, I think he fits in well with Acuna, Albies, those younger guys really well, and I think he livens the team and does a lot, in terms of, fans love him. This right here, we saw that all year long. I think he does a lot for the offense. Hopefully he'll do a lot for the defense this year. But, everybody said that, the Braves offense last year was just so ridiculous, and this guy's a big part of it. I don't think Freddie gets the protection he got last year without Ozuna, with anyone else. And think about it. A week ago, we were talking about, could Austin Riley be that number 4 spot? I was, saying I thought that could happen. I still think it could happen eventually. But it's a lot more of a sure thing when you bring back the guy that did it last year. So that's just how I feel about it. Jonas says, I'm the GOAT. I appreciate it, and I need to get to 1.5K for sure. I appreciate that. Tell your friends about me. I promise. I know it's been kind of scattered throughout the off season. We will do more of these type things during the regular season. Haven't really mapped out how exactly I'm going to do it, but there will be more. Will be more live videos. Will be more videos just in general during the regular season. There'll be more to talk about. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned here. Of course, tell your friends about it. I do appreciate you, and do appreciate that comment. So Sean says he'll be in left field until DH comes back in a year or so. Yeah, and you know what? If it does happen, I think Marcell is the perfect DH. I think, I still think Duvall might come back this year. And hear me out. Duvall is a guy, they talked about it. I didn't mention this, but they talked about him in the press conference today. Duvall is a guy that you could take Ozuna out in late innings and stick him out there for late inning defense. He's a Gold Glove level defender, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think Duvall could be a really good utility guy right now. Go take a look at your bench right now. It's kind of empty. You don't have Charlie Culberson anymore. You don't have Tyler Flowers. So it's kind of an empty well. You got Ender Inciarte, Johan Camargo, and I think you got an open spot there. So if it's me, I'm signing Duvall to a cheaper deal, or because he's tested free agency. I haven't seen anyone go after him yet. So I bring back Duvall, use him as a utility guy. The guy hit 16 homers last year, and whichever pitching he can dominate against, put him up against it, and I think that would be a very successful operation. But that's just how I would handle it. But anyway, I think in a year or so, if you still have Duvall, or if you want to put Waters there, you could put Waters in left and have Ozuna be DH, if that's the way the Braves want to take it. If Ozuna wants to play left field, let him play left field. I think there are a lot of ways the Braves can take this. But I appreciate that comment, Sean. Stay tuned. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that in about a year. So, Stellar says Pache can cover him way better than Ender or Ronald. Well, yeah, I think Pache will eventually be your center fielder. I think Ender may start the season just to give Pache another year of control under the Braves, but I do think that Ender will. I think Pache will be your starting center fielder for the 2021 season at some point. I hope it's as early as possible because I really like seeing him develop, and I think he's pretty much figured out minor leagues, and a lot of the guys in the Braves system, unfortunately, it's kind of bogged down because our talent upstairs is so good that these guys don't really get the chance. But there's a lot of guys that I think if you put them in the major leagues, it might take some time, but they would adapt and they would be just as good as our on-field product right now. Trey Harris comes to mind. The guy's a workhorse. He's an outfielder, number 13, I believe, on the prospect list. Drew Waters is another one that we've heard a lot about. Tucker Davidson, pitcher. Kyle Muller. I can talk about these guys all day long because there's so many of them. Bryce Ball, he's a guy that's really young, but you guys know a lot about him. There's a reason for that. The guy has power equivalent to Austin Riley. He's a first baseman, but obviously our first baseman isn't going anywhere. So I really think that the minor leagues, and that's why you hear so much about trade with the Braves, because everyone wants our minor league prospects because they know that if you put these guys in the situations where they can succeed, they will. So I really think that Pache is a guy that will come along and will help cover the outfield. And it may be that, Ender isn't getting the job done and he loses a spot. But I think it will be a quote-unquote competition until Pache inevitably wins that job. I just think that's the way things are going. So I appreciate that comment, Stellar, and I'm sure you'll have more for me as we go on. I hope they go ahead and give Freeman and Soroka deals. I thought that too originally, Sean, but let me remind you, Freeman actually came out and said, do not worry about me this year. Do not, I am not the priority. I'm not going anywhere. And, I think that's genuine. I don't think that's, I don't think Freddie wants to go anywhere. I really think Freeman has kind of identified the fact that he wants to stay in Atlanta. He likes the way Chipper has been cherished. And I think I really think that that's the way he wants to go. So I'm not so much worried about Freeman. Soroka, I agree with, because he's so young, he could go elsewhere. But again, I think the Braves are banking on him. I don't think he's going anywhere. And he doesn't seem like a guy that's a Trevor Bauer type that's looking to switch places every year and then get paid a lot of money by the Los Angeles Dodgers. But that's another story. Have you heard anything about Soroka lately? I have not. I really think Soroka's kind of in the back of their mind. Also, keep in mind, Soroka went down with a major injury last year. It may be that the Braves really just want to wait it out and see what he's going to be before they put a price tag on him. Not to say that he won't be back, but they might not want to pay him exorbitant amount of money if he's not going to be exorbitant, worth that amount of money. I think some of the mistakes they've made, they pay Ender $8 million a year, which is a bit much for a guy that's not playing every day. There's a lot of those. I really think they don't want a Bobby Bonilla deal. Not to say that would happen. I really don't think that would happen. I think Soroka is going to be just fine. But I think they want to see how his recovery translates to an on-field. But we'll see. I need to watch that interview for sure. I agree. Go check it out. I believe it's on the Braves YouTube. Go check it out. It's a long one. It's about 35 minutes. But I recommend that if you really are deep into the Braves, which if you watch me, you are, go check it out. You'll hear kind of all the behind the scenes of how this deal happened, what they think Marcell Ozuna is going to be, and it's very enlightening. I respect the Double A as taking team chemistry into consideration because everyone loves him being Ozuna. Yeah, I agree. I think that's always kind of in the back of your mind. You don't want to bring in a guy that's going to be a problem. You don't want to bring in a new guy every year, and Donaldson was, we all thought Donaldson fit in so well, and he did. I do think he did. But Ozuna just fits in well with the young guys, and that makes such a difference. I think he's a leader. I think he's a guy that puts it all on his shoulders and at the plate and performs. And I don't think the guy feels pressure. I really don't. Mean, he's a stud at the plate. I do worry about him a little bit in the defense area, but I'm curious to see how he does this year. I think we'll see a major improvement. Even though I don't think it was that bad. I don't think it was as bad as we like to make it a lot of the time last year. So, love that swagger that Marcell brings. What's up, Tyler? Trade Riley. I don't agree with that. Resign Freddie. Agreed. Wayne Blackman. Put Chipper on Riley starting now. Riley will make it. Yeah, I watched a clip the other day. I watch a lot of videos just when I'm out and about. And I had seen this before. I actually watched it live a few years back. Chipper Jones was in the booth with Chip Carey and I believe Jeff Francoeur, and they were talking about the on-field product, and Riley was a rookie. It was rookie year Riley, and Chipper was up in the booth, and they asked him what he thought about. Remember, Donaldson was at third base. Okay, so they were debating on putting Riley in left, because Chipper did that at one point, and Chipper pretty much said, no, Austin Riley is a third baseman, and he's going to be playing for the Atlanta Braves for a long time. I don't know about you, but I tend to believe Chipper Jones when it comes to anything in-house with the Braves, but also just the eye test. Go look at what Riley has done, the improvements he's made, the plays he made in the postseason last year at third, the hits he's been able to consistently hit, which is a big difference from first season where he had a monster month and then just shut down. And I don't think that's his fault. I think the game adapted to him because he didn't have to adapt to the game, which is something that we're not used to. Swanson, for example, had to adapt to the major leagues. Acuna, for a little while, had to adapt to the major leagues. He had a little bit of a Ozzy Albies. We've seen these guys come up that had to adapt to the major leagues. Pitching is primary example. Look at all the guys that do so well in the minors. Tucker Davidson, we saw him at the tail end of last year. They come to the major leagues and they have to adapt. Same thing happens at the plate. Difference is Major League Baseball adapted to Austin Riley, which we're not used to seeing. And when that happened, it took him a while to jump back. But I think he's become a more consistent hitter. I just hope he can become a more consistent power hitter. Because if he's putting up 40 homers, y'all aren't going to say a word. But that's the way I feel about it. Is everyone ready for a selfie? You know what? Next time, if I ever meet Marcell Ozuna, he's taking a selfie with me. I'm not taking one with him. He's taking one with me. But I'm ready. I definitely am. I would have Duvall before Johan. I agree. On the bench, I agree because I think Johan is a better player every day. Anybody's better every day. But Johan, I've met Johan. I've talked to Johan. He pretty much told me, I like to pray. I like to keep my routine of playing every day. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's the type of hitter you are, and that's what makes you successful, there's nothing wrong with it. And it's not really a bad way of thinking. But off the bench, I could say Duvall every day. It depends on the situation. For the Braves, maybe. But Johan is also a guy that I think if you put him on, let's just say the Marlins, and he played every day at third base, he would be an efficient third baseman on any team. Not to say that he's our best option, because I don't think he is, but if you put him on any other team, if you put him on a lot of other teams, I think he would start every day. whether that be at second base, shortstop, or third, or even in the outfield. I think his main issue is that he is too good at too many things, and that's very unfortunate for him because I know he wants to play every day, but that's just the fact of the matter. In terms of his future, I see that question a little further down. I think Camargo finishes his contract with the Braves, maybe becomes a trade piece. I don't think so. I think he likes the Braves. I think he likes the team he's come up with. He's friends with a lot of those guys, and that makes a difference. Not to say that he doesn't want to play every day. We all know the storyline was Austin Riley versus Johan Camargo at third base a couple years ago, last season even. I think that is still his mindset. He's competing, but I think it's a friendly competition. I don't think it's anything that's going to cause a problem or anything like that. I think I see your comment down there, Sal. If you trade Camargo and Inciarte, I don't know what you'd get back, maybe a bullpen piece, because you're really just trading Camargo. I really don't know anyone that wants Inciarte. And I mean that with all due respect to what Ender has been in the outfield for us. But he's getting paid a lot of money, and his bat's just not there. And when you get an outfielder, typically you don't want shortstop numbers. You want an outfield number. So I think he's a bench bat at this point and late inning defense. That's kind of where I'm at with Inciarte. But Camargo's different. Camargo still got some years. He's still got some power. I believe, in that game 3 during the postseason against the Dodgers, I was there. I believe, you guys won't remember this, but I was looking for any hope I could find being down 10 runs, and Johan came to the plate and proceeded to hit a ball pretty well. It went foul, but it would have been a homer. So the guy's got power, and I really think he's a utility guy at his truest, but unfortunately, I think that's not the role he wants. But we'll see. I think the bench is a little bit light. I think you need to keep Johan right now and Inciarte until you figure out what your bench is going to be. If you get Duvall, that's wonderful, but you got to do something. How much would we pay Freddie? That's hard to say because, any other year, I think you'd pay him, not Bryce Harper money, but any other year or any other team even, I think would pay him kind of exceptionally well. I think Freddie isn't going to take a sweetheart deal necessarily, but he's not going to make the Braves blow the bank. I could see 5-year, $90 million or something like that. I don't know. I think his worth is up there. It's so hard to say because I can tell you how much I think he's worth. I think he's 5-year, $100 million, and that's you're averaging out to 25 a year. But I don't know that he's going to get paid that because he might say, well, I'll take this deal to stay here in Atlanta, or I'll take this deal. You can reallocate the money that you were going to spend on me. Go get X, Y, and Z. He wouldn't be the first to do it. Chipper Jones did it. Tim Hudson, he did it with the Upton brothers. He's done it a couple times. So I think he may pull that card. He may there's so many ways that can go. But good question. Let me see where we're at. Do you think the Mets have a chance to win the NL East? That's a very good question here recently. The Mets have had a rough go at it in mainstream news here lately. I'm not going to get into that, but they've really had a tough go. Obviously, the Mickey Callaway investigations, all that good stuff. But, they got a chance to win it. I think it would be ignorant of me to say, no, the Mets have no way to win it because their pitching staff doesn't, I know Trevor Bauer was in the news this week, but their pitching staff doesn't necessarily need a Trevor Bauer. They already have a Trevor Bauer. His name's Jacob deGrom. And they already have let's just say Mike Soroka and Noah Syndergaard. They have pieces, and their lineup's not bad. I think ultimately it's a matter of putting those pieces together and winning with it. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, but they certainly have pieces. Do I think they're as well built as the Braves? No, but I think that is a matter of poor planning, not poor, playing. I really that's the way I feel about that. But yeah, they have a chance. It wasn't that long ago they were beating us every year. So just remember that. No DH means Soroka has to bat. Yes, he does. So does. Well, at least you get to see Max Fried on the base pass. Maybe he'll have another headfirst slide. Okay, I already answered that. I still believe in Camargo. I do too. I think he's got a long future ahead of him in the game. I think, a guy he reminds me of is Martin Prado. A utility guy that can hit. It's a consistent hitter. if he plays every day. You pull him off the bench, he gets a little shaky. Martin Prada's guy I actually really like. He's one of my favorite Braves of all time. So if that tells you how much I like Camargo, he reminds me a lot of Camargo. His swing reminds me a little bit of Dave Justice, but I really like Camargo. I don't feel the same way about Inciarte. I think Inciarte's got some work to do at the plate. There's a funny stat. I don't know the exact. I'm not big on the whole launch angle and things like that. That's not really my expertise, but they talk about how slow the balls are hit that he hits, and it's true. If you go watch him, it is true. For you kids out there, go play with Ender Inciarte on MLB The Show and tell me how many homers you hit. That's just it's honestly factual. I'm not saying he can't turn that around, but he's got some work to do. And I think Camargo is a guy that you can put in the lineup any day of the week and feel good about it. But Stellar points it out here, Inciarte has no trade value besides being a salary dump. Well, the problem is he's making $8 million a year. Nobody wants to pay him $8 million a year. But you got to throw in something valuable. That's why I say Drew Waters is a trade candidate. Not to say he's going to be traded, but that's the kind of thing somebody would want. If I was trading and I wanted, and you wanted something of mine and I wanted Drew Waters, you could throw Inciarte at me and maybe, all right. It cancels out. You might even have to add another piece to that, but that would cancel out to me. William, we're okay with Freddie contract. He wants to stay, and we have a lot of money coming off the books in 2022. Yep, completely agree. Freddie's not going anywhere. And, as a Braves fan, as a guy that covers the Braves, something that I think you probably notice, I certainly notice, is the Braves do a really good job. They do a really good job at making players feel at home. Donaldson didn't want to leave at all, and Ozuna didn't want to leave. Freddie doesn't want to leave. Acuna signed a sweetheart deal. Ozzy signed a sweetheart deal. It's yet to be seen, but Dansby will probably do it because he's a hometown kid. No one feels like, I got to get out of here. And, Adini Hechavarria, I think we all remember his post-game interview where he beat the Mets, a team he just came from, and he basically thanked the Braves for getting him out of New York. So that tells you how well the Braves do. And I think there's something to be said about that. I think that makes a difference. Obviously, the new ballpark is something nice about it. But the fact that you have a team that's so exciting, that is competing every year, and is fun to be around, I think that makes a difference. So, I think there's something to be said there. I think Alex Anthopoulos is a big part of that. I think the Braves organization is a big part of that. And I think the Braves fans are a big part of that. Guys, before we move on, while you're here, if you're new, go ahead and subscribe. Like this video. That really helps me out. Go ahead and share it on your social media. Get it out there. As I mentioned earlier, I'm really close to 1,500 subscribers. I can't wait to make that Instagram post. So go ahead and do that for me, and I would really appreciate it. Is there still a chance we get Turner, Ramirez, or Bryant? I don't think so. I keep hearing Jose Ramirez. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. It could. It certainly could. And I wouldn't be mad at it. I don't think I would be mad about it. I would be shocked, but I wouldn't be mad at it. I think I'd be more hesitant because of what I think Austin Riley can be, what I think you guys think Austin Riley can be, and I think, the Braves think. At that point, I would then question what Austin Riley will become, because the Braves would then know something I don't. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Braves are banking on Austin Riley, and I don't think they want to spend that money. Specifically on Jose Ramirez, not to say his contract's through the roof. I'm not paying Bryant because I don't think he brings you anything Austin Riley doesn't. Maybe a little bit better of a batting average, but I don't think that's the case. Justin Turner would be interesting, but I think the whole Justin Turner conversation was more so to get the Dodgers to pay more money for him, as they don't seem to mind to do when it comes to Trevor Bauer, so I'm sure that will happen, but I don't think the Braves are going to go get Justin Turner. Who is the backup catcher? I think that could flow. No pun intended. I think that could flow back and forth. Not Tyler Flowers. He is out of the picture, but you got William Contreras and you got Shea Langoliers. We saw William Contreras last year early on. I believe Darno and Flowers had COVID or got exposed to COVID, and they brought in William Contreras, and I was intrigued to see that because William Contreras is actually on this wall back here. I met him a few years back at spring training. Um, so I was happy to see it. I was curious how good he was going to be because obviously his brother is a star-studded catcher. So there were a lot of questions about what he could be, what he could do, and I was excited to see it. And he had he performed well. He got his first big league hit. We saw Alex Jackson last year. I think Alex Jackson could be a trade piece because I'm not trading Shea Langoliers and William Contreras just yet because Darno's contract ends next year. Who's to say you don't fill that gap with either whichever catcher doesn't come up this year, William Contreras or Shea Langoliers? More than likely, that will be Shea Langoliers because I think the backup catcher this year is going to be William Contreras, as Stellar says right there. He is major league ready. We saw him last year; he performed well, and he's had a whole nother year getting ready. So I think we will see him this year. I don't believe you're going to see a shocking Tyler Flowers re-sign. To be honest with you, if we want to turn the clock back a little bit, I was surprised to see Tyler Flowers re-sign his last deal because him and Kurt Suzuki's deals ended on the same year, and I believe the Nationals actually paid Kurt Suzuki less to go there than we paid Tyler Flowers. And Kurt Suzuki, to me, not to say he's a better catcher. I know Tyler Flowers is things that he can frame. I hadn't really seen that this past season. Wasn't really impressed by it, but at the plate, Kurt Suzuki, you throw that guy a fastball, it's going somewhere. And that's just the way I feel about it. But I really think William Contreras is going to be your guy this year. What about Markakis? Yeah, this is a guy I haven't talked about. When I was talking about Duvall, I probably should have mentioned Markakis. I also appreciate that quote there, Based Alaska. A day with Tyler Redmond stream is a good day. I appreciate that. Tell your friends. Go out there, text everybody on your contact list, and go tell them. And tell him to super chat me. That makes a difference. But Markakis. I really think Markakis is a guy we could see come back onto the Braves this year and be on the bench. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The guy's chasing 3,000 hits. I'm not going to say he's going to get there on a bench role, but I think he wants to win with the Braves. I think a World Series would be just as good as 3,000 hits to him. If he doesn't go back to the Braves, the only other place I can really see him going is the Orioles because that's where he played before, and I don't think he'd mind a trip back to Baltimore. But that's the way I feel about it. I wouldn't mind seeing Markakis back at all. What would it take to get Jose Ramirez, and will the Braves be willing to give it up? No, I don't think so, because I think you got to throw in Riley. If Jose Ramirez is going to come play third, you don't need Riley. I think you got to throw him in there. And then I think you got to throw something else in there. I think because Riley's not proven yet. I think you maybe throw in either a pitcher from the minors that's pretty good or even an outfielder because, frankly, you just signed an outfielder for 4 years. Maybe Drew Waters, maybe Trey Harris, maybe somebody in that ballpark. I think it would take at least a prospect and Austin Riley, at least. I don't think the Braves would give it up, though. David O'Brien predicts we have 10 to 12 million left to spend for a reliever bench piece and a more expensive third base. Don't see third base happening. I think you get two relievers, one of them being Shane Green, and then I think you get a bench piece, that being Duvall. That's where I'm at with that 10 to 12 million. And you don't have to spend all 10 to 12 million, but if you were to, that's what I would spend it on. Ramirez is an awesome contract. No way Cleveland gives him up. I agree, unless the Braves want to pull a Padres and do what they did, to get Clevenger. I don't see that happening. The Padres really went all in last year, and it ended up kind of backfiring. They didn't really get much out of Clevenger, so I think that'll be an interesting thing to see this year across the way over there in the with the Padres. But to me, I think Austin Riley's your best bet. I truly do. Keep it up. I appreciate that, SBF. I do appreciate it. You too. You keep it up. I appreciate it. Markakis can still hit. Yes, he can. The fact of the matter is, Markakis does two things that I really like. One, he gets base hits, right? Two, he fouls off. He takes pitches. He does, which is something I can't say for everybody in the Braves lineup. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. The game's changing, but he's more of an old school guy that is able to battle, which is something that I think Acuna could learn a thing or two from. Don't get me wrong, I love Acuna, but when it comes to swinging at bad and good pitches, Markakis is the guy. So I really don't think that's to me, Markakis would not be a bad bench guy. Again, the only other place I can see him going is Baltimore. Other than that, maybe hanging him up. But I don't think he wants to do that. I don't think he should do that. I think he's still got some stuff left in the tank. He wasn't bad last year. He had a couple bad little, streaks, but he wasn't bad. And when you're coming off the bench, when you're not playing every day necessarily, I don't think there's a spot for him in the outfield anymore because they've pretty much established left field and right field, right? Left field obviously being the guy they just paid $64 million for, and the other being Ronald Acuna. So center field is the only question, and I don't think you're going to see Markakis playing center field. I don't think that's the case. I think opening day you see Ender out there because they're paying him $8 million a year to ride the bench anyway. You might see him out there unless he gets traded. At that point, you'll see Pache. Whatever day it is that they don't have to act like they're not holding him back for another year of control. I think you'll see him. But I think you'll see Pache in center field. So to me, your starting outfield this year, again, is Ozuna. Left to right is Ozuna, Christian Pache, and Ronald Acuna. So that's the way I feel about it. Let me see what we got here, because y'all are really getting in here quick. The person who broke Ozuna reported the Indians are asking for Riley, Waters, De La Cruz, and Langoliers. It's unconfirmed. Again, that's unconfirmed, and there's a lot of unconfirmed out there. I appreciate you putting this in. This isn't against you, but there's a lot of stuff that is just talking points for media. And I don't mean to throw that at anyone nationally, but it's just the name of the game. It's trade talks. Who really knows? It's a he said, she said environment. I would say that if that's what they're asking for, when it comes to Jose Ramirez, that's a no for me. Because I want if you trade for Jose Ramirez, you don't need Riley. But Waters is a guy I think that could have a lot of value in a year or two. Riley's a guy I think that has some value now. De La Cruz is pretty good. And Langoliers, guys, go watch some highlight videos of Langoliers. I don't want to lose Langoliers. I want to see him develop and become a guy with the Braves. Whether that be in a year or whether that be in 2 or 3 years, I want to see him come with the Braves. I think it'll be sooner rather than later. And there's nothing wrong with having catching depth. Nothing at all. We saw that, for example, last year when both our catchers went out with COVID. So there's nothing wrong with having catching depth. Alex Jackson is a guy that I think is expendable. I don't think Langoliers is that guy. If you trade Langoliers, you better make sure it's worth it. So if that's what they're asking for, that might be true, but I just don't think that's going to be what it is. Not to mention his salary. So I just don't know where all those numbers line up, but I appreciate it. Gonzalez, you want to re-sign Melanson? I talked about this for a minute last night. I'm a Shane Green guy. I have been early on. I have a video. It's way on down my channel if you can find it. But I thought Ender Inciarte would be traded for Shane Green a couple years ago. The same year the Braves got Shane Green. I was right. I was halfway right. The only reason I think that did not happen because Ender was still holding some value at that point. He just wasn't needed on the Braves. The only reason I think that did not happen was because Ender Inciarte was injured at the time. Had that not happened, I think it would have went through. They ended up trading a prospect or two, I think, for Shane Green, but they got him. And I've been a Green guy ever since. I think, to me, Melanson's just fine, but I want him in the 8th, not the 9th. Just because I really want a guy pumping the upper 90s to close out a game. That's just, I feel a lot better about it personally. But Green for sure is an awesome guy. We need to sign him. Agreed there, William. I appreciate that. Are the Braves still the favorites for Duvall? I haven't really heard anything about him or his injury either. I think somebody else must have asked that. Sorry if I missed you. Tyler, I think with Duvall, I don't know that there is a favorite. I think it wouldn't surprise me just because things are so quiet, just like they were with Ozuna. It wouldn't surprise me if it wouldn't surprise me at all if they just out of nowhere went and got Duvall for a bench bat. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But it also wouldn't surprise me. Let's say the Reds had Duvall there for a while. It wouldn't surprise me if the Reds went and got Duvall. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of teams went and got Duvall just because he's so valuable. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he went and got paid. But who knows? Again, the whole idea of free agency, the whole idea of contracts being signed, it's a very especially today, it's very he said, she said, social media battle for headlines. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, you got to do your job. But because of that, a lot of this stuff gets, I mean, look at what Trevor Bauer did to the Mets. It was hilarious, but the Mets thought they had him. So how valuable is anyone's opinion at that point? So I really just, I wonder. I don't think the injury is going to happen. I think that's over with now. But, I think a lot of people wonder about what would have happened had Duvall been in the lineup against the Dodgers. But it is what it is. What's going on, DB Cooper? You ain't boarded any planes lately, have you? As of now, I'm hoping they bring back Shane Green, and I think Riley and Swanson will be the difference makers leading up to the trade deadline. I agree. That's about where I'm at. I think so too. We're going to get a bench guy and a bullpen guy, I think, and that's about it. Yeah, somebody mentioned that earlier. That's where I'm at. Maybe 2 bullpen guys and a bench player if you want to fork out the cash, but the bullpen was so good. I really think A.J. Minter overperformed. And that is going to allow them to kind of look at other options, which is probably why they haven't re-signed Melanson. But it could happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. The bullpen was definitely a strength last year. But I still think they need another guy. What if I also think Will Smith will have a better year this year. So that'll be a big jump. I wouldn't surprise me if he's closer. What if Ender just went crazy and proved us all wrong? You know what? If he hits 30 homers one year, I'll forget everything I just said, but I don't think that's going to happen. AJ or Tyler Matzik need to be the closer of the future regardless. I think Matzik is a better guy for a longer relief, kind of like how Tomlin was. I think he, not as long, but maybe two innings. I think he's a 2-inning guy, so I like him in 6-7. And it's not because he can't be a closer. He certainly can. But I think AJ right now, out of the guys that are homegrown, AJ is the guy that's the closer. I said early on in his career, he kind of reminds me of Kimbrel, that early lean, and of course, he's got a nice fastball. So, not to say he's Kimbrel level, but he's a guy that could be a closer for any team. If the universal DH happens, and you're hoping it does, Ozuna would probably be it for the Braves. So who would be good in left then? Adam Duvall, Drew Waters, Trey Harris, Ender Inciarte, I guess, Christian Pache, whoever you needed. There's a lot of options there. And if you wanted to, you could go out and get another guy. Nick Markakis. There's a lot of guys out there that could fill that role. I think the Braves kind of wanted that to happen. Not to spread a false narrative, but I think the Braves were kind of hoping there would be DH because you could then throw in another bat in your lineup. Not even a knock on Ozuna. The fact is, if you can put him at DH, put a better defender out there, that's better for everybody. It's not an insult to his defense. It's just factual. If Riley and Swanson take steps back again, would you be ready to pull the plug on either via trade by the deadline? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I can't see that. Riley especially, the guy, he's like 22 or 23. He's not very old at all, and I think you gotta let him develop. I think he's improving every year. Now, if he takes a major fall, where he's hitting one for his last 30 or one for something of that nature, you can maybe talk me into it. With Swanson, I don't think he took a step back. I think he took a step up. I mean, the guy performed early on. He carried the Braves last season. Of course, that couldn't continue because the guy was putting up MVP level numbers for that first month. Go back and look. It was every game. To me, and this is going to sound very cliche, I think when Dansby Swanson's doing good, the Braves are doing good. I truly think that because I think he's a guy that lights the fire, similar to Ozuna. I think he's a guy that went. How many times has it been that you've seen a base hit walk off for Swanson and things like that? I think he's a guy. He's a hometown kid. I think you can get him for a deal. And look, you're never going to have the best everything, okay? Unless you're the 1975 Cincinnati Reds or the 1927 New York Yankees, you're never going to have the best everything, okay? There are going to be strengths and weaknesses in a team, and they're going to flow, right? It doesn't make sense to think we're going to have the best outfield, the best infield, the best lineup, the best bullpen, the best starting rotation. That's just not going to happen, especially in today's game where people are forking out cash for those individuals. It's just not going to happen. The reason it happened in 1927 and 1975, and if you want to call it, if you just want to say they had the best overall teams, completely, I think it's because that you had a lot more homegrown teams, and the Braves have brought in a lot of that. But unfortunately, at some point, these guys are going to get paid and go elsewhere. They've done a very good job at keeping those guys at home and developing them in the lower levels. But I'm not getting rid of Swanson for anything at the moment because he might not be the best shortstop, but he's a guy that means a lot to the Braves, and I think he's overall just an Atlanta guy. A guy that Matt Ryan, right? Everybody every year talks about how they want to get rid of Matt Ryan and start from the ground up. I don't disagree because the Falcons are in desperate need of it. I know this is a different sport and we're kind of going off the deep end here, but Matt Ryan is an Atlanta guy, right? And to me, Matt Ryan's not the problem. Swanson's not the problem. Swanson does his job, is an excellent defender, works well with Ozzie Albies in the middle infield, and he's an okay hitter. He's not going to blow you away. He's not Derek Jeter necessarily, but the guy's a solid shortstop. And right now, you got him on a great deal. So that's the way I feel about it. But I appreciate the question for sure. But no, I don't think it's time to quote-unquote pull the plug at all. Let me see where we're at. I don't want to miss anybody. Dodgers overpaid for Bauer, and I'm a fan of Bauer's, but that is a fact. I completely agree. I would not have paid Bauer that much money. I knew somebody was going to do it. It shocked me that it was the Dodgers. I thought originally it was going to be the Mets. Personally, I really thought it was going to be the Mets just because of the way things were going. And the Mets, I'm just going to say it, the Mets are kind of organizationally, they make these type of moves. Bobby Bonilla, they make these moves all the time where they're going to be, this one wasn't long-term, but they're going to be long-term for a lot of money. And the Mets are also kind of desperate right now. And I'm not throwing shade, but they're kind of desperate in the sense that the Braves don't have to go get somebody. They just went and got Francisco Lindor not too long ago. They have to go get people. The Braves luckily don't have to do that. I think the Mets have to. I think, the Mets for a long time have been, they had really good years, especially over in the National League East. When the Braves weren't doing good, the Mets were. I remember watching TV when I was a kid, watching Bartolo Colon, absolutely dominate the Braves. Syndergaard, Jacob deGrom, and it was honestly the worst thing ever. But because they haven't developed on that foundation, they haven't grown these guys. They had a few guys come up in the ranks, and then nothing else ever really happened. And they're finally starting to do more of that, but they have to go get people. And I think the Dodgers feel, frankly, Kershaw's going down a little bit. He's still Kershaw, but he's going down over the past few years. Bauer's a guy that you bring in, and he's instantly great, and he can win you a game once every fifth day. But that, again, you're paying him $40 million a year for a guy who's going to pitch every fifth day. And I'm not, again, if Bauer, if there's one pitcher right now that's worth it, it's Bauer, but I just don't know that any pitcher's worth it. I can get two decent starting pitchers for half that price, or for that price rather. So I really think, I really don't know what I think about that. We'll see. I mean, look, they paid Mookie Betts a solid amount, and it paid off for him in the postseason last year. So who am I to say? But I just don't think that's gonna. I'm not going to say it's not going to work out, but I just think there are better moves to be made. And I knew somebody was going to pay it. I just thought it was going to be a team that was kind of out of contention, and the Dodgers are certainly not that. It'll be interesting. I think they'll definitely be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, heck, they're the defending World Series champions, and now they just got a star-studded pitcher. It also surprised me because Trevor Bauer strikes me as a guy that would want to go, like he did last year, to a team like the Reds and win with them, right? Beat the big bad evil empire, and the Dodgers are the big bad evil empire of the National League right now. But it really surprised me. I was shocked to see that. But I do think they overpaid. But it's not my money to spend. I think AJ would be a better middle inning reliever. I think AJ would fit in well in whatever inning you want to put him in, and I think that's what makes him so valuable at this point. And just the fact that how much he developed last year, the guy, I remember meeting AJ at spring training a couple years ago. There's a picture out there somewhere. I don't know where it's at. But he was nobody, And now, last year, all of a sudden, he's on the biggest stage of his life, and he pitched excellently. So the fact that he's able to do that is fantastic. What does my lineup look like? My Acuna 1, Freeman 2, Ozuna 3, Travis d'Arnaud 4, Swanson 5, Albies 6, Riley 7, Pache 8, and your pitching spot 9th. But, again, that's just top of my head. I'd have to really think about it to give you an accurate one. And it would flow based on left-handed pitching. Early on, Pache would be ender. So, I'm not the manager. Save that for Brian Snicker. But that's about where I would put it. I think having d'Arnaud behind Ozuna gives him enough protection to actually be active behind Freddie because I think both of those guys need protection. I think Swanson or Riley are pretty interchangeable there, depending on who's hot and who's not. So I think that would be a pretty good lineup, though. I don't know. How would you order our rotation? That depends. If I'm simply ordering from best to worst, I think you got to put Fried at number 1. As much as I think Ian Anderson is going to overpass him at some point, I think you got to put Fried at number 1. Ian Anderson number 2, Charlie Morton number 3, Soroka number 4, Smiley number 5. And it's not even best to worst at that point. Soroka is just kind of a wild card at the moment. Charlie Morton's a wild card too. You can honestly put Soroka at 3 and Morton at 4, but that's just best to worst. It would depend on left-handed, right-handed. There's a lot that goes into that, but that's where I would be thinking at the moment. Fried's your definite number 1. I think Ian Anderson's your definite number 2, just based on last season. LOL, I bring it up because he might get too good and demand a higher contract. We'll see. Their drum, I know you're talking about Swanson. The thing about Swanson is he's a hometown kid, so if he demands a higher contract, it would surprise me. But even if he does, there's a lot of money coming off the books in 2022. You make that decision at that point. There are a lot of shortstops out there. I think Swanson's a guy that is good enough to make you successful, but not so good where he's going to demand that higher contract. $40 million a year, getting paid for only 6 months, and that's a little over $222,000 a day for every 6 months. Yeah, the Bauer thing didn't surprise me that he got that money. It just surprised me with who did it, who was willing to pay him. The Braves beat every Dodger starter except for Price in the playoffs last year. Yeah, who's that other guy? Urias. Not even a starter, I don't think, but that guy just dominated the Braves, and it was so unfortunate. But they're the Dodgers, man. They've been building this for years. They've been doing what the Braves are doing now for 5 years. They probably should have won in 2017. Let's be real here. And they've been good for a very long time. They're going to be the Braves' biggest enemy this year, I think, as they are every year. AJ Minter is our Craig Kimbrell. Don't know that he's up there yet, but he certainly has the potential to be. Acuna, Albies, Freeman, Ozuna, d'Arnaud, Swanson, Riley, Pache. Not a bad lineup at all. Since the American League will keep the DH position, does that mean the American League will get used to their designated hitter in the World Series and the National League team has to use their pitcher to hit? This isn't anything new. The American League has always had the DH position. It goes by home field. If you're playing at American League Park, you have a DH. If you're playing at National League Park, both teams use a pitcher to hit. But that's all that is. But, guys, I have been talking, I think, now for a straight hour. I'm going to read whatever this next one was. But after that, I am going to get out of here. Before I go ahead and hit that like button. Do me that favor. Hit that like button. Share this on your social media. I always appreciate it. Of course, subscribe. Stellar, One thing I find worrying, have you seen our projected arbitration cost for 2022? It's a jump of about $90 million estimated. I'll go look at that and I'll have an answer for you next show. I haven't really looked at that at all. Honestly, I've been so focused on what the Braves need to do in the next week that I haven't really looked at next year. But I will get back to you on that. What would you do with Drew Waters? Last question. Drew Waters at the moment, I think you see how he develops. There's not really a spot for him in the outfield. At that point, it'd be Pache and Waters competing. He's not going to overtake Ozuna. I think Drew Waters has now become a trade piece. And I don't mean that knockingly. I just don't see a place for him at the major league level, and I think he's a major league level prospect. So we'll see. He might get traded over the next week. He might get. He might just hang around with the Braves for for a few months. But I don't see anywhere for him to go. I might be wrong. Somebody might get hurt. If Pache got hurt, then what do you do? So who knows? All right, last question because I think it's a good place to end on. William, I appreciate it, my man. It means a lot to me. Super chats always mean a lot to me, but I do appreciate that. Super Bowl pick. I have been asked this so much this week. My buddies, I pick on my buddies a lot because they always want to bet me and they always lose. I've never lost a bet with any of them, even in football, which I'm not really educated that much on football. But I won fantasy this year. These are both of my quarterbacks from fantasy this year. Patrick Mahomes was the guy that I went with pretty much all year long. Brady I used sparingly. But Brady, those last couple weeks, did pretty well for me. I'll tell you this. I think ultimately the better team is the Chiefs. However, they have a lot gone on their O-line. They have some pieces missing. And I don't put money against Brady. So I don't even know who I want to win at this point. Because, look, I'm a Falcons fan. I don't want to like Brady. But at the end of the day, the guy's the best quarterback of all time, more than likely. Final pick. It's a very difficult choice. I think it's going to be a very good game. Ultimately, I think the Chiefs will probably prevail, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than what people are giving it credit for. A couple of my buddies think it's going to be a blowout. I do not. I think Brady's going to give them something to be scared of. And I think ultimately it wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me if the Chiefs blew out the Bucs. It would not surprise me if it was a very close game. It would not surprise me if the Bucs won by a touchdown. But it would surprise me if the Bucs blew out the Chiefs. That's what I'm going to leave it at. I think ultimately the Chiefs are the better team and the Chiefs will win. But I'm not one to bet against Brady. So my money will stay in my pocket this weekend, as I would encourage the rest of you, do not bet on this game. If 2016 Super Bowl didn't teach you anything, do not bet against Tom Brady. Although I wouldn't bet against Patrick Mahomes either. But that's it for today. Again, last thing, Ozuna's back. Obviously, that's a great deal. Go watch the Braves press conference from today. If you're deep into the Braves, if you care enough, go watch it. It's about 30 minutes, but it's kind of boring. It's not as exciting as me, but I think it'll be a very good thing for you to go watch if you're deep into the Braves to see how they operate. But I'm going to get out of here in just a second. Any last comments, you better get them in because I am hopping out of here in just a second. But, yeah. So, Super Bowl, I'm going Chiefs. What's going on, Atlanta Kid? Super Bowl, I'm going Chiefs. And ultimately, I think they are the better team. Go watch that clip. I'm going to get out of here, guys. If you got anything else, let me know. But if there's nothing else, I am going to get out of here. I'm trying to wait. Congratulations, Atlanta Kid. Congratulations on 1,000 subscribers. I know that's a big deal. That's monetization. It's a very big deal. So congratulations on that. I'm gonna get out of here though. Go check out Atlanta Kid's channel if you want to. But ultimately, go check out that press conference. It will make your day. It will give you a little bit more to think about when it comes to the Braves, and it may just give you a little bit more insight into the way I like to think about the Braves, which I think more people should probably do. But I'm going to get out of here, guys. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good day. Enjoy the Super Bowl. And I guess go Bucs and go Chiefs.